Okay. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome. Thank you also for your patience and tolerance as we had to move some dates around. And thank you especially to our speaker today, Ruth Phillips, for being here today with us. So before we get into that, though, we have big doings coming up in December and January. Join us in December for our annual Let's Catch Up with Each Other, Let's Visit with the Board, let's hear what all is going on, what we have planned for 2025, and most importantly, let us show off our craziest, ugliest, tackiest Christmas, Hanukkah, holiday season apparel. Gotta have priorities. That's going to be on Friday the 13th, all superstitions aside, at noon Eastern. Then in January, we will have our panel discussion on artificial intelligence and incorporating that into training design and delivery and using it as a tool and not as a replacement for our entire industry. So if we want to get into the paranoia aspect, we could do that too, but that's going to be on January 10th on Friday. Craig says less chance of hurricanes in January. Yeah, the hurricane was a huge disruptor in October for so many things. So anyway, we hope to see you there at these upcoming. Oh, and Heather is posting on chat, site in-person conference news coming soon. Dun, dun, dun. I wish I had fanfare. You need to be at the luckiest Friday the 13th Christmas party, sweater party ever to catch some of that news. So if the prospect of tacky Christmas holiday apparel does not excite you, then certainly you will want to be there to hear our announcement and we can finally get together in person. It's sweet. Okay. So then I don't know if I need to remind you of why it is so great to be a site member, but I think we need to remind other people. Don't forget to invite other training professionals to join our organization. You know, over the years, we've lost a lot of corporate support because of budget cuts, and in this hard market, a lot of that is probably still ongoing. And as budgets loosen and as things change, don't forget to remind some of our partners, one, well, don't forget to remind them about all the benefits of being a site member. We support each other. We have our Train the Trainer program, and there will be more news about that coming up. We're setting the dates for 2025. Our website is going to be coming on live here soon. We are switching our website platform, and there's going to be a lot more functionality there. But I think the biggest thing is the networking opportunities and the way that we support each other and help each other with ideas, and we help each other grow in our careers. So don't forget to do a little bit of recruiting. So without much more delay, I bring you Ruth Phillips, Gamification in Insurance Training. Ruth and I have had a lot of conversations about this, and she was also a guest speaker at our last session on Train the Trainer, talking about the uses of gamification. She is the Training and Education Senior Specialist at Higginbotham Group, and she brings this refreshing passion and intensity to our industry that you don't see very often. With over 25 years of experience in the insurance industry as both an account manager and as a training specialist, she also has a master's in adult education. Her specialty is P&C lines of business and helping insurance professionals master a lot of the complexities that, well, it's always been a complex industry with language, regulations, et cetera, but it's evolving at a pace that we've really never seen before. And she's helping insurance professionals navigate this. She's an active member of SITE, and she is also a good friend to have, good person to know. And I'm going to turn this over to Ruth Phillips.
All right. Well, I mean, after an introduction like that, I think I'm ready just to call it a day and go home. I mean, that's an amazing introduction. I am very excited to be here with y'all today. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be great. I was teasing some of my friends saying we're going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons because I'm all about gaming. But we're not, unfortunately. We're going to be talking about gamification in training. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to just roll right in. Let me do that. I think the best way to learn is by doing. So, y'all need your smartphones out or access to a website where you can, I'm sure you guys are familiar, you know how this works. You're going to scan that little QR code and make sure I say allow guests, and it's going to put you in my gamification program. I use ClassPoint. I do not work for ClassPoint. It's just what I use and what I like. So that's what we're going to be using today. Y'all are hopping in there like the pros you are. I think the hardest part about using gamification is the technology aspect of it, right? Because you always have that one person in your class that's like, how do I do this? How do I log in? I can't connect. So that can hold you up. If you have an Android phone, you may need to take a picture of it. Some of my Android friends say it doesn't work quite the same way. All right, it looks like we've gotten all kinds of people in. So we're going to um, get out of that. And we're going to get started. So let's practice and make sure everybody's in the program and they can use it. What do you think of gamification when you hear that? What's the first thing that pops in your mind? And this is a word cloud. So the more of the same answer, the bigger the words get, which is always fun to see it actually happening live. And I'll give y'all a couple of seconds to do that. I love it. Right. I think fun is the big one. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's engaging. I love these answers. You've never heard of gamification before. That is absolutely okay. Different people call it different things. I mean, we're gonna maybe talk about some of the other things. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's just when you have games in your program," but we're gonna talk about that. Roblox. My little niece loves some Roblox. She's always like, Aunt Ruthie. Um, all right, you guys are great. I'm gonna close this out now. And I'm gonna give you all some stars. So that's fun. Gamification is this process where we are not creating games. Let me be very clear on that. Back in the day when I first started training, we would have things like a bingo card, right? And every time I said the word insurance or whatever, you would find the little words on your bingo card, and whoever got bingo first got a prize. Or maybe there was a scavenger hunt or match, guess whose desk this is, or guess whose pet these are. Those are games, and those are fun, and they're very worthwhile. But gamification is where we take aspects of video games and we incorporate that into our programs. So things like leaderboards and points and badges and stars, all of those things that you may see from playing a video game. And if you're not like me on your Xbox every night, maybe your children or your grandchildren, you see them playing these video games, and we're incorporating that into our training program. It makes the program so much more engaging, a lot more fun, and it's just what our younger participants that are entering the work floors, they grew up playing Xbox, PlayStation, whatnot. So they're used to these things and they really enjoy them. And we're taking that and we're bringing it in to our training programs. So you're going to see these game designs and principles, the leaderboards, the points, the badges, progress bars, all of these different things used in these gamification programs. depending on what type of program you're using, you're going to have different things and they'll call them different things. But it all takes all these different elements and they use that. We use, this program uses the leaderboard a lot, and I will show you what that looks like right now. So here's a leaderboard, and you guys can see that people have stars and there's also badges. So you get different levels and you have different ranks, and it's very competitive. But the big thing that it does is that it takes passive learning and it turns it into active learning. You have your audience. They are very focused. They are very engaged. They want to be involved. Why do they want to be involved? Let me tell you, they want to be involved because they want to be number one on the leaderboard. There's no doubt about it. Um, when we have these gamification tools in our arsenal, your people want to be very, very competitive and they have so much fun doing it. I will say, learn from my mistake. If you're using a gamification tool, make sure you understand how the actual points get awarded, because just like that word cloud we did at the beginning, this particular program class point will give you a star for every response that you give. So if you gave 5 responses, you got 5 stars. I did not know this at the beginning, and so I would have like unlimited responses. I was teaching this class in, well, not this class, but a class in person in my office here in Brookhaven, and I had a bunch of producers in the class, and there is nothing more competitive than a room full of producers. And so they're like, I throw up the word cloud and they're answering it. And one of the producers, this 60-year-old guy, he's in the back and he is just smirking like, he knows a secret. Well, he did know a secret because he figured out the more responses you put in, the more stars you got. So he was just going crazy with the stars. I threw up the leaderboard. He had like 400 and everybody else had 200. And they're like, he cheated, he cheated. So make sure you understand how the actual points get assigned, because they will be competitive. They're going to pay attention. They're going to be focused. It gives your participants a sense of accomplishment. I know it seems silly, but those little badges, those little points, the stars, it's like, woohoo, I did something right. I got a prize, right? Especially our younger adults that are coming into the industry. They grew up playing video games. They know all about achievements and leaderboards and what it means to be on the top of the leaderboard. They are used to that. It is just ingrained in the way they think. I'm playing in my Xbox at night and we're killing dragons and doing whatever because I play Dungeons and Dragons online. So there is a DPS, it's damage per second leaderboard. And these guys, they're checking that leaderboard after every major fight to see who's on top of it. So it's just something that they're used to. When you have it in your training, they love it. I do training and they're like, Miss Ruthie, can we see the leaderboard before we go to break? I mean, like every hour we go to break, they want to see the leaderboard. They want to see who's on top. It really helps them stay focused. Why is this important? Well, as instructors, we want our participants to be focused on us. But what we're instructing, insurance, claims, customer service, it can be challenging sometimes, right? I mean, how many of us have tried to explain the difference between a claims made form and an occurrence made form or occurrence trigger, right? So we can take these challenging concepts, break it down, have the people pay more attention and retain it better. So that is why gamification is such a great tool for our industry specifically. It helps our learners retain. The more you do something, the more you hear something, you're going to retain it better. And we can have our participants use that information immediately, whether it's, through a little polling question or a multiple choice question. And we're going to practice with those in a second. But we also, as instructors, get immediate feedback. We may not know if we have a participant lost, right? Especially if we're doing it over Zoom or hybrid. We may not see that deer in the headlights look. We don't know what's going on with them. But if we pop up a multiple choice question and half the class gets it wrong, we know something is off key, right? Maybe we explained it wrong. Maybe we went too fast. Maybe we skipped a slide. It could be a lot of things. But as instructors, it gives us that immediate feedback. It also does the same thing for our participants, right? Because if they're playing along and they get a question wrong, they're going to want to know why they got that question wrong. What happened? Did they read it? Did they read it wrong? Did they just hit the wrong button? I can't tell you how many times I get the Miss Ruthie, I really knew that answer. I hit the wrong button, right? Because they're doing it maybe on their phone or whatever, and things happen. So it really gives immediate feedback both for us as the instructors and for our participants. It takes the complex topics. We break them down into manageable segments. Our participants can really focus on that and they learn. The other great thing about gamification, depending on your program that you're using, it can be very advanced. It can give you real world scenarios that you can learn in, practice in, and not be in danger of like giving clients wrong information or messing something up. This is really true, especially in our claims field, where we can have people who are learning to be adjusters. They can be working a claim simulation and practicing all of those things that they've learned maybe in a textbook, but now they have a real life scenario to learn it. I was taking a risk management class and it was so much fun. They used gamification. We went through a restaurant and we got to point out all of the concerns, the slip and falls, the exposed wiring, there was no mat for them to stand on, all of these things. And it just made it so much fun, but it also really reinforced the information. So we were retaining it better. I think practicing difficult topics in a safe environment is great for everybody. I've used these, especially when for my CSRs and account managers, dealing with difficult customers, explaining why you have a premium increase, explaining about different deductibles. It's always fun. I love writing it because I love writing like the responses when they say the wrong thing, like, oh, why did my bill go up? Because it did. And then like the customer gets mad and storms off. I love writing them. It's like story problems and I get to go crazy with it. So much fun. All right. The big thing, if nothing else that y'all remember today, it gives us increased interaction. I know as trainers and instructors, I am not the only one who has taught a class online in Zoom, and it was like talking to crickets, right? Absolutely no response. You don't know if the people are awake. You don't know if they're sleeping. You don't know if they're checking their Facebook, crushing their candy, whatever they're doing. Increased interaction is the big takeaway from gamification. We have all of these activities that the people can do. They get rewards. Everybody wants to be on top of the leader chart. So you have that interaction with your class. The other cool thing is that many of these programs, after you get done with your program, you'll get a report that says, hey, you had X amount of gaming elements, and out of the 20 people in your class, 10 responded to this one. And they can break it down by actual element to see who responded to what. So you can very quickly figure out if Janet was sleeping during your class because she didn't respond to anything, which can be very helpful. I know I've had team leads come to me and be like, well, I don't understand why Sarah's not doing well in your class. And I'm like, well, I don't really know if she's paying attention. This is the data that I'm getting back. And maybe she's distracted. And in one particular case, she was distracted. She was the receptionist and she was trying to answer the phone and take our class. And she wasn't in a position to succeed. So we were able to correct that. All right, this is one of the tools that we can use to give points. It's a little quick multiple choice question. Um, y'all should see it on your phone. And I move the slide away, I will move it back. But as the instructor, you can see immediately what the polling looks like, what the question is. So if I was teaching this class and a bunch of people were getting the wrong answer, then I knew I had a problem, right? That is how you get that immediate feedback back. Um, I love this. I usually hide it though, because I don't want my people to see it, because I don't want everybody to know that B is the correct answer, right? So I usually move that over. I know for a lot of gamification platforms, they work better as for the instructor if you have dual monitors. Very hard to do on a single monitor. I think most of us have gotten to that dual monitor part. Um, in a past life, I actually had 3 monitors and I loved it, but my desk isn't big enough for that anymore. All right, so I'm going to close that submission and then it shows the answer and I can give y'all more stars and you will see that on your thing. And I hit the back button. All right, so here's a leaderboard that I did before class started because I wanted to be number one because, number one. But here's the current leaderboard where we're at now. Kim's still in the lead, but some of y'all are catching up. All right, let's see. I'm sorry, I said all that already. We don't want to say it again. All right, it gives us gamification, gives immediate gratification. You guys do not laugh at my graphic here. I asked AI to make me a graphic and AI can't spell apparently. It's like, oh, let me just spell everything wrong. But the gamification, it keeps the participants motivated. When I teach classes, sometimes I'm teaching 3-4 hour classes and they're over Zoom and sometimes they're after lunch and people zone out. You guys know, your instructors, that Zoom fatigue is a very real thing. People get bored, they get tired, they need a break. The gamification keeps them involved, keeps them motivated. We have these quick wins, small rewards. I mean, it's just a silly star or a silly point, but it really does keep your learners motivated. It also will generate conversations between your participants. So I was teaching a class one time on a commercial lines topic, but I had some personal lines people in there. And the personal lines people were not scoring as high as my commercial lines people. And they were like, hey, Janet, why'd you miss that question? Yeah, and she's like, well, on personal lines, I just didn't get it. And so they would talk among themselves about why she missed it. And so it was building networks, instant gratification. They were actively engaged in the conversation to the point where we kind of stopped talking, like I stopped instructing and just kind of let them talk it out between themselves because I can explain something one way, but Jen might be able to explain it a different way and it clicks with somebody else, right? Um, it was really great to see those two sides of the house, personal lines and commercial lines, coming together and talking and being so engaged in the class. And I was like, yes, I'm doing something great as an instructor. Really made my day. We talked about how you can practice real life situations. I really do love this for gamification. I think it's fun because it is very much like a video game, and most people like video games. I don't know. Some people don't. I like video games. Our younger people in the industry, while they may not like video games, they grew up with them and they knew them. It makes learning fun. If we can instruct something in a way that really sticks with people, they're going to remember it. And you learn more by doing. it's a proven fact. You learn more by doing. If I'm going to sit and lecture at y'all, you're only going to remember maybe 5% of that. But if you can do something with it, you're going to retain more of that knowledge. The real life situations, it's a great example. I told you about the claims, about the risk management. You can use it for so many different variations, especially in the insurance industry, about what they can do. I think what they're doing on the claim side is just amazing, though. Um, I saw a program once where you were like at the body shop and you were adjusting a car, and it was just crazy how detailed and how great that knowledge was. The quizzes and challenges, they reinforce what you're teaching. And this little pyramid, I borrowed it from the National Training Laboratories. It's not mine. I didn't come up with it, but it's been around for a while. When we're lecturing, you only remember 5%. If you are actually active in doing things, you learn and retain more. And that's what we want. If I'm going to teach a class, if you're going to teach a class, you want your participants to remember what they're teaching. My little niece comes home from school and I said, Sadie, what'd you learn at school today? She's like, I don't know. I had a sandwich for lunch though. And I'm like, that's great, baby. Was it a good sandwich? What did you learn at school? We want to make sure our participants remember what they learned. And gamification helps us do that. We have repeated exposures to the concepts that we're teaching. The more times we can repeat it, the more we're going to remember. I think years ago when I started going to in-person conventions and conferences, I was told, say somebody's name 3 times because then you're going to remember it. And it's the same idea, right? The more you're exposed to something, the more you will remember it. Depending on your program and the gamification tool that you're using. If you're using a very highly adaptive one, they can take algorithms and really individualize it and give you specific learning pathways. This is amazing. It's a little pricey, not gonna lie. It is a little pricey. But what it looks like is you're in a class and you have like different questions and maybe you're not succeeding on them, right? So what the algorithm can do is instead of saying, hey, Janet, you failed, it's going to say, hey, Janet, here's your next recommendation. And it's going to take you to like a remedial class. Whereas, maybe Mike got all of them right. And so he's going to get moved into a more challenging class. He's going to go up the ladder. The gamification tools can do that. Obviously, this is a more advanced one, so it is a little bit more pricey to develop, but it is so amazing about what they can do with all these algorithms and um, questions and difficulties. I have seen a program that nursing students use, and it's really amazing. They'll be all the same students, all in the same class, but they're all at different levels, and the program puts them at the level that they need so that they can all succeed. Because we all learn differently, and we all, maybe some of us need more help with this or more help with that, and the individualization and different learning pathways can help you do that. I really love the fact that the algorithms can figure out what you're struggling on and maybe give you more practice questions for that, or send you to additional training without making you feel like, oh, I failed this, because you don't know that. Your participants don't know that they're getting sent to the remedial class. They just know that, hey, this is the next class in my pathway. I got to take it. Personalized feedback for the learner. They're going to learn very quickly what they need to improve on. If you're in this class and your teammates in a different class, you're going to realize that y'all are on different pathways, and it's going to help them understand what they need to focus on. Especially if you're doing little polling questions in class, they're going to be able to say, hey, I missed that question. I didn't get it right. Maybe I need to ask the instructor on break. Maybe I can, go back and review this information. When I was doing a class on claims made versus occurrence forms, I had one of the participants, she emailed me and she's like, can you stay 10 minutes after class? Because I am so lost. I missed every single question. And I'm like, yeah, sure, not a problem. As the instructor, you get that feedback too, that you know who's succeeding, who's not, what's going well, what's not going well. So you can really be on the spot and work on it. I was in a class years ago where I thought everything was going great. There wasn't a lot of feedback in the chat, but nobody had any questions. So, being a brand new instructor at the time, I thought no questions was a great thing and no comments was a great thing. And let me tell you, it's not, right? We know that, right? Because if they're not talking, then we don't know what's going on. And so I was very surprised 2 days later when I got an email and they were like, Ruthie, can you come help us? Because we're confused. I'm like, I just talked about that in class. And they're like, we didn't get it. Like, why didn't you say something in class? Why didn't you say something in class? Nobody, and I'm that student too, y'all. If I'm in a class and I don't get something, I am not saying anything. I am going to keep my mouth quiet and I'm going to just try to figure it out on my own. Or if it's an in-person class, I'm going to get my neighbor sitting next to me to ask the question. Be like, hey, did you understand that? Why don't you ask a question? Because I don't want to talk in class. I don't want to be that one person. All right. Another little question. What gamification platforms have you used or have you heard of? Because let me tell you, there's a lot of them. I tried to Google, God bless Google, how many different gaming platforms, gamification platforms were out there. And the answer was hundreds, hundreds. So, Kuhu is very popular. I know a lot of people use that. ClassPoint, that's what we're using today. I did not know about AHA until earlier today. I know about that one now. We're getting some great ones. Here's the thing with gamification platforms. They're all different. I mean, they're similar. They don't have the same concepts, but they're a homemade one. That sounds like fun. Capterra, Poll Everywhere, Docibo, right? I know it's not pronounced how it looks. It's like Italian, Docibo. Okay, I'm going to close that. I'm going to give y'all some stars. I'm going to check my time. All right. I told y'all the good about gamification. Let me tell you the bad about gamification. It does take an investment of time and money. So if you're not using gamification now and you want to, you're going to have that buy-in, right? You're going to have your manager support. You're going to have to convince them to use it. Depending on the type of gamification that you want, you might find a free tool. Or if you want something as fancy and top of the line, you might be committing $50,000. Prices can be anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 for some very detailed ones that take those algorithms and can really give you those individual pathways. So what do you do? You want to make sure that you've done your research. Go out, Google, read reviews. A lot of these platforms have free trials. Go take advantage of them. I know I've gone to my manager before and I'd be like, I signed up for this free trial of this and I'm going to try it out for a week and see how I like it. And she just kind of like rolls her eyes at me and be like, okay, whatever, just let me know. um, but yeah, take advantage of the free trials. Ask your friends. Um, Email us site members. Ask us what we're using. Every program is different, and different ones may have what you need. I was very interested in the leaderboard. That's I love the leaderboard. I wanted to be able to share this with my participants because it keeps them engaged. So that I knew that was like one of the major things that I wanted in a program. You have to consider the return of your investment. Now, I am not a numbers person. Math is not fun. I tell my niece it is though, because I want her to be a numbers person. When we are talking about gamification, we really need to be able to justify the expense, especially if you want to, adopt a new program. You've got to be able to go to your manager and say, "Hey, this is the expense, but this is my return, and this is what we're going to get out of it." You have to look at your objectives, and they should be very clear. What are you trying to get out of your learning program? What is the main goal? I want to teach them Insurance 101. I want to teach them how to adjust a claim. Whatever it is, you need to have your objectives. You have to have some type of baseline. You have to know where your participants are starting at so you can judge where they're at now. I use a pre-test and post-test, and that works for me. It makes the numbers a little bit easier, but you have to have some way to compare the results from when they get done from when they started. And maybe that's like getting feedback from their manager to see if their performance has improved. But you have to have that. You have to be able to know if you're meeting the objectives and how much their knowledge has changed from the baseline. And then you have to figure out the hard question. Is it worth it? Are we seeing a big improvement? Are we seeing any improvement? Gamification may not be the right choice for what you're trying to do. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it's not the answer, and it might not be. It's fun. Don't get me wrong, it's fun. But maybe a bingo card will work, or, guess the picture whose messy desk this is. You really have to consider all of that. The other thing that we want to be aware of with gamification is that we usually have these platforms and they're built out. You have your module set up, and our industry changes. So we want to make sure that we're keeping up with all of the regulations, especially if we're using gamification to record CE responses. Will our state allow that? Everybody has very specific CE requirements. If we're talking about risk management and claims, we have different codes for compliance, and like building codes, for example. If we're doing a class on building codes for our risk managers, those change frequently. We want to make sure that the gaming platform lets us update our modules very easily, right? Can we go in and update one slide, or do we have to throw out the entire module and start over? Because it takes a long time to build out a module. So we want to make sure that they are easily updatable. Because if they're not, maybe that's not the best choice for us to teach this particular subject. When gamification fails, and it does fail, it fails sometimes. The reason why it fails is because the instructors tend to oversimplify the material. If I'm teaching claims made versus occurrence, and I say, well, claims made form is when the claim was made, and occurrence is when it occurred, and I went on my way, right? I'm oversimplifying it, and it's not going to work. The people are not going to learn the material. Oversimplification and poorly designed programs are why this fails. You want to make sure, as the instructor, as the designer, that we are meeting your learning objectives. Whatever your objectives are for the class, the gamification gaming elements should tie into that. Now, I like to have a fun one at the beginning, like the word cloud we did. I like to have a fun thing because that way I can make sure everybody's in the program and they all understand how it works. But any other gaming elements that I have, they're going to tie into my learning objectives. Because if I just have gaming elements to have gaming elements, yeah, it might be fun. Yeah, I'm going to have that competition, but are they learning anything? Chances are no. And then my manager's going to be like, you just taught a 3-hour class and nobody learned anything. And I'd be like, yeah, but I had a great response on the gamification. Everybody loved it. You have to make sure that the gaming elements give you value to your learning objectives. If they don't tie into each other, if they don't mesh, your program is going to fail. And I don't want anybody to fail. I want us all to succeed. The primary goal is always learning. Yeah, we want to have fun. Yes, we most definitely want our audience engaged. But if they are not learning, then we're wasting everybody's time and nobody has time to waste. The gaming mechanics need to match our learning outcomes. We want to make sure at the end of the session we met all of our objectives and everybody has learned it. If we just have the gamification to get the points, then nobody is learning and that's a fail. And I don't want that to happen to y'all. Last step in the gamification process is that as trainers, as instructors, we need to regularly monitor and assess our training, which we should be doing anyways, right? Honestly, we should regularly be doing this, but with gamification, it's important because we want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students, of our participants, of our managers, whoever's asked for this training. We want to make sure that we've met those needs and those standards. Sometimes I get the feedback from the learners. Sometimes I get the feedback from their managers. It just depends on your situation and what works best for you. I know the first time I used this gamification program in an in-house CE class here in Brookhaven, I had participants reach out to my manager directly. They bypassed me, went straight to my manager and was like, this was the best class Ruthie's ever done. And she's been doing this for 20 plus years. Well, they thought that because they got to play games. I don't really think I taught it any differently, but they were more engaged. So that feedback is important. You do want to monitor and assess it. And I think I'm going to stop sharing and open it up for questions, comments, concerns, feedback. What do we got? Nothing. That's great. I did a wonderful job.
Well, we had Colleen asked on chat. She was asking before we did the word cloud of platforms that everyone has used. Uh, she asked, how about a platform for simulations? The only
I
one
know.
I've ever used, it wasn't interactive though, it was Viond, and you kind of make your own cartoon and you're kind of simulating conversations or, it's kind of like a cartoon role play, but I don't think that is the question though.
I know there are platforms out there. I know Farm Bureau's using them, State Farm's using them. I've used Easy Generator, which Easy Generator will let you go in and do a class, and then you can have like it's the conversation piece of it. Like person A says this, so how do you respond? And then you can pick the answers. And then depending on what they pick, then you have like this whole tree that you have to write. It's a lot of fun to write them, but then you have this whole tree that you write to go in and respond to how they're doing. I've used that. It's a lot of fun. It is very time consuming to write and come up with because you want to have all of the different responses, but it works. It's fun. That's a great question.
There's another one. This is Mary Regum at Great American. We have a corporate-wide LinkedIn Learning account, and I just learned last week that LinkedIn Learning is going to do some simulations, and then based on how the simulations result, they will recommend classes in LinkedIn Learning. So, that's a huge corporate commitment that we've made, but I can also tell you that with my State of Ohio library card, I have free access to LinkedIn Learning. So there's some possibilities depending on kind of what resources you might have available, but those simulations are included in LinkedIn Learning kind of for free. And then the example they gave us was on performance management, so a little more generic, not technical insurance specific things, but and I haven't seen it, so that's my disclaimer. But LinkedIn Learning in certain aspects is free of charge, or maybe if you have a corporate membership, it's a possibility too.
I see Mike also asked about how do you balance the gamification with the state required CE learning. For Mississippi, I have to have a sign-in sheet for my CE to show that people were there, because I only do in-house, in person. I don't do online CE learning. did participate in an online class that used gamification. So they had the gamification portion, but they also had those standard, are you still here poll questions, because you couldn't mesh them. So I really think it's very state specific. I would think maybe at some point in the future you could mesh those questions together. But every state is so picky and so different. I don't know. I don't think that would happen tomorrow, but I would think at some point you would be able to mesh them together.
Yeah, I would just add, Ruth, sometimes, so being a licensed agent in Florida, by example, for 9 years, I had to do the ethics course, which is basically the insurance regulations course. And every one of those is the most dry 5 hours that I've ever sat in anything. And so having some sort of engagement that would happen between the presenters and the participants in there to getting their CE. I mean, it's all about answering the questions. 3 hours, I get that. Most states are going to do that. But I was just wondering if there's a way you could incorporate that where you're using a poll question, everybody has to respond. To the state, it doesn't matter what the answers were. To the state, it matters that they have acknowledgement that you're sitting there. I guess that's.
Yeah, I think that would work great because I take this one class online, and they're like, the polling question is, are you still here? Yes or no? And it doesn't matter what you answer because it counts. But I'm just like, what would happen if I say no?
I teach for a national organization. I'm on their national faculty, and that's the questions. Are you here? Yes or no? It doesn't matter how you respond. The fact is you respond. So just a thought as I was thinking about that, because if you made that sort of more engaging for the participants, I wouldn't have dreaded that 5 hour class every year or every 2 years, I guess, in Florida. It's not every year, but having to sit through, probably, no offense intended to the people doing it, but it's very dry material. It's hard to make it interesting, but it's required, so you got to do it.
Kimberly's asking a great question. How did you start learning more about gamification? Is it as easy as just doing a lot of Googling? Like most great trainers, I stole it from somebody. Okay, I borrowed it from somebody. No, I sat in the class and they were using it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that. And so then I started Googling it. They were using Kahoot. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. You have your phone, you scan the QR codes, you can do all this stuff. And so then I just started Googling different things and looking at YouTube's, doing the free trials, bugging my manager to death about, hey, let's try this. I don't know how many practice classes I made her sit in so I could try all the different features. Or my poor coworkers, I'm like, I need you to sign up for this class that I'm doing and answer this question so I can see what it looks like. But that's it. Kahoot's the gateway drug. Yes, it is. There's so much more out there now. I mean, there's the kind that you can make animations with. I really think also the more willing you're able to practice and try and to maybe step out of your comfort zone, the more you're going to find success, right? Because it's always changing. We're always adding more and more tools. And you go out there and you try new tools, and you have just a whole bunch more out there to use in your arsenal. And I think that's a good thing too. The more stuff you have in your arsenal to use, the better position you are. CC used to be free, now it's super affordable. Yeah, I think and the cool thing, depending on where you work at. So at Higginbotham, we have 30 different trainers for various, like we have EB and we have personal lines and we have what I do, and just they're 30 different of us. And so somebody in your organization may be using some type of gamification platform. So you can be like, hey, I know over y'all's department, I saw y'all using this. Can I get a login code? Can I try it out? And you might be able to share resources like that.
I have a question, another question. So I've done some sort of hybrid training now where I'm in person, but we also have online participants. I just did one I guess it was this week. Anybody using gamification in that sort of setting, it's easier when it's all in person because you can obviously see the participants, but
I use this ClassPoint app, and I do use it when I'm doing hybrid classes too, and it works very well. I will say, and I probably should have said this at the beginning, that a lot of these gamification programs, you want to make sure that your audience has access to Wi-Fi or internet. Because let me tell you, if you're trying to do this and there's no Wi-Fi connection, you're going to feel a little foolish because you're going to get the, Ruthie, I can't connect to the internet. And I'm just like, oh, okay, well, let me come up with plan B very quickly here. So, I think a lot of them do lend themselves. Kahoot, ClassPoint, obviously, if you can scan a QR code and you got your smartphone, everybody can see the results. So I think they work well for hybrid situations too, and just in person or just online. I have some rabbit holes to explore. Oh, Kimberly says she asked her kids what she's doing in school and she copies that. I think this ClassPoint app was actually designed for school teachers. And now once it's gotten out, because they have a lot of free resources for teachers, school teachers, more professionals are using it too.
Any other questions for Ruth? Well, thank you so much, Ruth. I've learned a lot. I have a lot to look into, and I'm kind of excited. So I really appreciate your time and all the work you put into this. And you guys have a wonderful day. Go kick some butt, and we'll see you next month.
All right. Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruthie.
Thank you, Mike.
Ruth, you're a rock star.
Well, thank you. I hope it went well. We were a little short on time. I talked too fast.
You did great.
With
Thank you.
discussion, you ended up within 10 minutes. So that's good. That's perfect.
Perfect.
It's
All right.
perfect.
Well, thank you guys.
So who won? I want to know who won.
Oh, who won? Okay, I can pull it back up.
Sorry, I'm competitive.
I should have shown the leaderboard before we got out of the class. Let me get back in my class here and I will pull it up.
Mike, were you one of the ones who entered in multiple, like 10 answers on the first
I
question?
will not divulge any of the activities that I did, as they may implicate me in a crime without my attorney.
Let's just do this real quick.
No, it was fun. I'm a reluctant